It is... I know I said I was going to make a video earlier, but I was trying to think of the right way to say what I wanted to say. And I think it's not quite perfect, but I found a story I really want to share. And another thing, before that, I have another thing I want to share that I have so many things I've been wanting to post for a long time, but I am behind. But I went to Indiecade back in, was it August? September? October. It was in October. And I've met my game developer hero, and so the game that kind of, I think it just came during a certain time in my life as well, but it really shaped my perception of games. And it's a small game, but I guess it was one of the first games that was so short and poignant, and just I don't know, I'd never been affected by something so quickly, and I just really liked the idea of having something concise and elegant and still share something so much larger than that, because I still think about this game years later. But I met the developer for it at Indiecade, and there's two developers, is Michael Molinari, I have his card, and Chelsea Howe, I think is her name. And so the game's called The End of Us. And I'll talk about it more on Blueberry, so you guys can go play it, so then when I talk about it, you'll already know about it. But yeah, that was, I don't know, something I wanted to talk about briefly before this. Okay, so then this story I would like to read. Kind of about, there's a lot of symbolism in it, but the whole, life, death, life cycle, and some small things. It's in the context of relationships, but it also applies to, you see that a lot in other aspects of your life as well, these cycles that you go through. But yeah, okay, so story time. You can go ahead and get some tea and relax. I have my lavender honey tea I really like. Okay, and some coconut oil. Okay. Okay, so it's called Skeleton Woman. She had done something of which her father disapproved, although no one any longer remembered what it was. But her father had dragged her to the cliffs and thrown her over and into the sea. There, the fish ate her flesh away and plucked out her eyes. As she lay under the sea, her skeleton turned over and over in the currents. One day, a fisherman came fishing. Well, in truth, many came to this bay once, but this fisherman had drifted far from his home place and did not know the local fishermen stayed away, saying this inlet was haunted. The fisherman's hook drifted down through the water and caught, of all places, in the bones of the skeleton woman's rib cage. The fisherman thought, "Oh, now I've really got a big one. Now I really have one." In his mind, he's thinking of how many people this great fish would feed, how long it would last, and how long he might be free from the chore of hunting. And as he struggled with this great weight on the end of the hook, the sea stirred to a thrashing froth, and his kayak bucked and shook. For she who was beneath struggled to disentangle herself. The more she struggled, the more she tangled in the line. No matter what she did, she was inexorably dragged upward, tugged up by the bones of her own ribs. The hunter had turned to scoop up his net, so he did not see her bald head rise above the waves. He did not see the little coral creatures glinting in the orbs of her skull. He did not see the crustaceans on her old ivory teeth. When he turned back with his net, her entire body, such as it was, had come to the surface and was hanging from the tip of his kayak, by her long front teeth. "Ah!" cried the man, and his heart fell into his knees. His eyes hid in terror on the back of his head, and his ears blazed bright red. "Ah!" he screamed. He knocked her off the prow with his oar and began paddling like a demon towards the shoreline. And not realizing she was tangled in his line, he was frightened all the more, for she appeared to be standing up on her toes while chasing him all the way to shore. No matter which way he zigged his kayak, she stayed right behind, and her breath rolled over the water in clouds of steam, and her arms flailed out as though to snatch him down into the depths. "Ah!" he wailed as he ran aground. In one leap he was out of his kayak, clutching his fishing stick and running, and the coral-white corpse of the skeleton woman, still snagged in the fishing line, bumpety-bumped behind right after him. Over the rocks he ran, and she followed. Over the frozen tundra he ran, and she kept right up. Over the meat laid out to dry he ran, cracking it to pieces as his McClux bore down. Throughout it all, she kept right up. In fact, she grabbed some of the frozen fish as she was dragged behind. This she began to eat, for she had not gorged in a long, long time. Finally, the man reached his snow house and dived right into the tunnel on his hands and knees and scrambled his way into the interior. Panting and sobbing, he lay there in the dark, his heart a drum, a mighty drum. Safe at last, oh so safe, yes, thank the gods. Raven, yes, thank Raven, yes. And bountiful Sedna, safe at last. Imagine when he lit his whale oil lamp. There it lay in a tumble upon the snow floor, one heel over her shoulder, one knee inside her rib cage, and one foot over her elbow. He could not say later what it was. Perhaps the firelight softened her features, or the fact that he was a lonely man. But a feeling of some kindness came into his breathing, and slowly he reached out his grimy hands, and using the words softly like a mother to a child, began to untangle her from the fishing line. Oh, na, na, na. First he untangled the toes, then the ankles. Oh, na, 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 na. On and on he worked into the night, until dressing her in furs to keep her warm. The skeleton woman's bones were all in the order a human should be. He felt into his leather cuffs for his flint, and used some of his hair to light a little more fire. He gazed at her from time to time, as he oiled the precious wood on his fishing stick and rewound the gut line. And she in the furs uttered not a word. She did not dare, lest this hunter take her out and throw her down to the rocks and break her bones to pieces utterly. The man became drowsy, slid under his sleeping skins, and soon was dreaming. And sometimes, as humans sleep, a tear escapes from the dreamer's eye. We never know what sort of dream causes this, but we know it is either a dream of sadness or longing. And this is what happened to the man. The skeleton woman saw the tear glisten in the firelight, and she became suddenly so thirsty. She tinkled and clanked and crawled over to the sleeping man and put her mouth to his tear. The single tear was like a river, and she drank and drank and drank until her many years-long thirst was slaked. While lying beside him, she reached inside the sleeping man and took out his heart, the mighty drum. She sat up and banged on the sides of it. Bum, 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 bum. She drummed. She began to sing out, flesh, 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 flesh. And the more she sang, the more her body filled out with flesh. She sang for hair and good eyes and nice fat hands. She sang the divide between her legs and her breasts long enough to wrap for warmth, and all the things a woman needs. And when she was all done, she also sang the sleeping man's clothes off and crept into his bed with him, skin against skin. She returned the great drum, his heart to his body, and that is how they awakened, wrapped one around the other, tangled from their night, in another way now, a good and lasting way. The people cannot remember. The people who cannot remember how she came to her first ill fortune, Say she and the fisherman went away and were consistently well fed by the creatures she had known in her life underwater. The people say that it is true, and that is all they know. The end. Okay. So what do you guys think? Yeah, I'll leave it at that. Okay. See you soon. Bye.